Hello everyone, my name is Elena. I'm a professional Vedic astrologer, and in this video, I will be given a forecast for this eclipse season of August of 2026. As is always the case with forecasts, we're going to start looking at some macro level trends and what the transit is promising for us overall, and then we're going to take a deeper look at each of the zodiac signs and what this eclipse season will bring for you. If you like Vedic astrology forecasts, transit discussions, celebrity birth charts, karma, spirituality, astrology, zodiac signs, then be sure to subscribe to my channel as I regularly publish content on these topics. This eclipse season will officially take place between August 12th and August 28th of 2026, at which time we're going to observe a solar eclipse in Cancer on August 12th and a lunar eclipse in Aquarius on August 28th. Do know that these are sidereal zodiac placements, and they are different if you're referencing the popular Western sun sign astrology, where the eclipses take place in Leo for the solar eclipse and Pisces for the lunar eclipse. Now, one of the things that is very interesting about this eclipse season is that normally when eclipses take place, they do so in the opposite zodiac signs, like Leo and Aquarius, Cancer and Capricorn, and so on. However, this time around, the solar eclipse moves one sign back. So the eclipse that we're going to observe is going to take place in Cancer, even though Ketu, one of the lunar nodes that is causing the eclipse, is still placed in Leo. This solar eclipse is also happening with the participation of Jupiter and Mercury, who are going to be stationed in Cancer at the time of the eclipse. So we can think of this eclipse as somewhat of a demo version of the eclipse season that is going to follow when Rahu and Ketu change signs to Cancer and Capricorn later this year. It is important to understand that eclipse season brings a time of change, which is often unprecedented and feels very turbulent. Not only because change itself feels uncomfortable, but because during this time, we feel a much bigger influence of the lunar nodes Rahu and Ketu. If you're not sure what those are, then be sure to check out a video that I recently published where I talk about them in detail and what sort of influence they have over our lives. We're going to experience the eclipse effects on the global level, where likely the eclipses are going to come with some major global events, trends, and shifts, as well as the individual level, where we each individually are going to experience some changes in our lives that are pertaining to different life areas, as we will discuss in the individual zodiac sign forecast section of this video. On a global level, the eclipse season brings up the themes of the zodiac pair Leo and Aquarius, as well as the themes of the Cancer zodiac sign. Some of the ways that we're going to see this at a global society level is in the relevance and the juxtaposition of the traditional hierarchy, which is a Leo topic, and decentralized structures, which is an Aquarius topic. The setup and operating structures of companies, corporate structures, governments are likely to undergo a change in how they operate, with traditional top-down structures making the way for a more flat and horizontal organization. The society as a whole starts, or rather continues, gaining more and more interest in decentralized regulations, solutions, and ways to manage their assets, their status, life setup, changing social and professional hierarchies. This will continue to be mirrored in consumer trends, workplace dynamics, and technological solutions development. This flows directly into the next theme of the figures of authority versus the people. This can prove to be an interesting time for people in positions of power, such as politicians, government officials, oligarchs, the elite, C-suite, and top-level CEOs, as they double down on their rhetoric. You can see them placing more of an emphasis on their methods, rhetoric, ideology, and showing up more in the public space through media or even personal appearances, where the influence that they're going to try to make is going to be something we're going to feel a lot more this time around. And this is especially true of the leaders who practice a very authoritative and even dictator-like leadership style. The pressure levels can really rise here, causing a lot of the dissatisfaction by the people, the workers, and other masses they're trying to get support from, or gain control of. This eclipse season might give rise to more rebellious sentiments. It can result in some protests, demonstrations around the world on a macro level, and workers challenging their bosses' decisions and causing workplace mutiny. This can also manifest as needing to find a place between dominance with top-down decisions and teamwork, where each team player feels valued, appreciated, and like they're working toward a common goal. The first eclipse on August 12th can be quite a bit more emotional because it takes place in the sign of Cancer, which rules over feelings and emotions. At a macro level, this is the time for people in positions of power to learn to respect and empathize with people that are working for them or with them, and learning to show this respect in a way that makes others feel valued, appreciated, and inspired to continue working toward the common goal. Another juxtaposition we can expect to look at is tradition, which is represented by Cancer and Leo, and innovation, Aquarius. Many people might struggle with the rapid technological advancements that we've seen recently, especially since AI started taking the world by storm in late 2023, 2024. We can expect a push for more traditional, old school and nostalgic experiences, trends, and solutions. Some governments might try to promote retro agendas focused on the traditional values, how good things were back in the day, and these other types of slogans. So in a way, we might see more rebellion against the rapid technological progress, but that's not going to curb it in any way, shape, or form. If anything, we're going to see more technological progress and deal with more problems that come with it. This can take shape of anything from new global social media viral trends, new AI developments, model and feature releases, and even something more harmful like data leaks, phishing, and other cybersecurity attacks, scams, service disruptions, service outages, and other things of that nature. What's interesting to consider as a Leo-Aquarius juxtaposition theme that we will feel more on an individual level is the juxtaposition between our desire to be unique, to stand out from the crowd, to be our most authentic selves versus following trends, fitting in, and feeling like you're a part of a community, finding your people. More people might be preoccupied with finding their unique personal style, coming up with fresh, original ideas, doing something that hasn't been done before, or finding their group of people, a community that fits and where they feel they can be their most authentic selves, being united with others under common goals or interests. This particular eclipse season can be more difficult on our ego and self-esteem. We can somewhat lose touch with who we are, go through a mini identity crisis where we no longer feel what is authentically me? How do I want to show up in this world? Maybe I need to discover or rediscover who I am. Maybe a version of me that existed before no longer exists now. This can be particularly true for you if your sun at birth is in Cancer or Leo. An interesting trend we might see are medical developments, since both eclipses take place in constellations that are related to medical discoveries. Solar eclipse will take place in Ashleisha, a constellation that has a meaning of poison, which in small doses can be used and is used as a cure. The lunar eclipse will take place in Shatapisha, a constellation within Aquarius whose name is literally translated as 100 doctors, and which often carries scientific and medical advancements. This was the case during the 2007 eclipse season, which is the last time when the lunar node Rahu was transiting Shatapisha and when an eclipse took place in that constellation. August 2007 was a historic month for science and medicine. Key milestones here included major stem cell breakthroughs, starting the Human Microbiome Project, and major breakthroughs in cancer research. These innovations paved the way for modern tools and personalized medical treatments, which we're relying on today, that are using a person's own body cells in order to create a personalized medical treatment. It was also during this transit that the scientists were able to first capture a 3D map of the dark matter. Using this historical data can help us predict that during this eclipse season, we can hope to see some other technical and medical advancements. Lastly, as mentioned in the beginning of this video, the solar eclipse will take place in Cancer, which gives us some clues as to additional topics we can expect to see at a global level. This can include mental health struggles, family dynamics, and relations with relatives, a certain crisis of faith and hope, and lack of optimism. Since the solar eclipse takes place in the Ashlesha constellation of Cancer, something to watch out for is people's or even our own desire to manipulate others or circumstances into their favor. Things may not be as they seem, so it's really important to trust your intuition and your gut during this eclipse season. Also, since one of the Ashlesha themes is poison, the risk of different forms of poison is higher during this eclipse season. So for this reason, be very careful not to eat any expired or ill-prepared foods. It's best to stay away from alcohol. And if you're on any medication, then double check your prescription to make sure that you're taking the correct meds and dosage and that the medication hasn't expired. On an individual human level, Rahu and Ketu are our inner darkest sides, our demons, if you will. And during the eclipse season, these parts of us are there to torment us, and they're trying to become more loud, trying to take over. We're more prone to intrusive thoughts and obsessive ideas. It's a lot more difficult for us to think clearly, to have a clear picture of what's going on, and we're more prone to follow our instincts and temptations. It can become harder to make decisions, or you suddenly get the urge that you need to do something right now, and that something is likely to carry a destructive character. For example, you can get the urge to quit your job, leave a relationship, get involved with someone that you shouldn't, or things of that nature. It becomes a lot harder to resist temptations during an eclipse season. It can sound quite scary, but here's a very healthy way to look at an eclipse season. This is a time when you are shown what in your life still works and what no longer does. You can start to see which beliefs and structures of your life might be false, what needs to be transformed, where you might be steering wrong, and what are some of the things that you may have been right about all along. It's a very good time to realign with your inner compass, understand the direction of your life development, and evaluate what things, people, ideas, beliefs need to stay in the past. Sometimes this can come with quite dramatic events where you may be forced to make bigger changes. Other times, you will experience it in a milder and even positive way, perhaps through getting valuable insights and observations. Oftentimes, the eclipses bring the events that are fated for you, things that were supposed to happen. And this doesn't just happen within the eclipse season. This can happen shortly before or after. You might be wondering, how do you find out if you're more or less susceptible to the effects of the eclipse season? The people who will feel these effects more acutely this time around are anyone with Sun, Moon, Rising, Rahu and Ketu signs in Leo, Aquarius, or Cancer, anybody whose Sun or Moon is conjunct Rahu or Ketu at birth, anybody who's born during an eclipse, and anybody who is currently running a Sun, Moon, Rahu, or Ketu period or subperiod. The more of these criteria you check off, the more likely you are to experience the effects of this eclipse season. If you're unfamiliar with your Vedic astrology birth chart, you are more than welcome to check out my video on how to build and read your Vedic birth chart. Also, if you're wondering if bigger shifts are coming your way, you're welcome to book a personalized reading with me, information for which you can find linked in this video's description. Before we move into the individual zodiac sign forecast section of this video, I'd like to remind you that this is a Vedic astrology channel, so the zodiac sign that you may be used to associating yourself with in popular Western sun astrology does not apply here. Instead, what I recommend is listening to the forecast for your rising and moon sign in Vedic astrology. And if you're curious to know why, you can check out my video about the big 3 placements in Vedic astrology, where I explain their significance. Now let's start looking at the individual zodiac sign forecast for the eclipse season, starting, of course, with Aries. This eclipse season takes place in your 4th and 11th houses. Solar eclipse in the 4th home of home, property, mother, and motherland can bring changes to your home environment, both physical and metaphorical. You might find yourself finally being able to purchase a home. Maybe a real estate agent calls you back, or you finally find the listing for the property that you've been hoping for. You might need to move to a different home, whether in the same city or location, or in a completely different city, or even a country. Or perhaps you just come to a realization that you would like to buy a home in a specific place and start looking into what you will need in order to make a new place your home. If moving and big property moves aren't in the cards for you at this time, this can simply manifest as you wanting to change up your home environment, maybe sprucing up your living room or adding a bit more comfort touches to the living space you have. In any case, the matter of comfort, sense of home, and happiness will be front and center for you, Aries, during this eclipse season. In the metaphorical sense, this extends over to your sense of happiness, being at peace with yourself and your life. This might be a more turbulent time when you might need to deal with some more lingering feelings, old wounds, unprocessed emotions, and childhood trauma. If this is the case for you, Aries, the eclipse season is trying to show you that it is time to move on from the pain and let go of that which no longer serves you and learn to manage your feelings, emotions, and response to the world. These are all excellent for any therapy work that you might be doing. And if you're not doing any, then this is your sign that it's time. Lastly, this eclipse might bring more disturbances or just events into your mother's life or your relationship with your mother. Lunar eclipse in Aquarius in your 11th house will bring your attention to your friends and social circle. This eclipse season might bring new friends, like-minded people, or communities that you might want to become a part of. It will also inspire you to set up some longer-term ambitions and goals. Even though the eclipse is technically taking place in your 4th house, the 5th house topics such as children and creativity are also highly relevant for you as Ketu is still transiting your 5th house in Leo. This might bring a time for introspection and review and needing to sort of disassociate from the success of your creative project or your children. Anything that is your baby, be it a child or a project, is a source of pride for you, Aries. And this eclipse season teaches you to accept the imperfections that your creative projects or your children might have and not try to force and control them into the image of what you want these things to be. Instead, letting the events run their course. Taurus. For you, the eclipses will happen in your 3rd and 10th house. This eclipse season for you is about deciding where to place your effort and how much work you're willing to put in. Solar eclipse in your 3rd house will force you to review how you communicate, make contacts, show initiative, and how much effort is enough to put into your activities. You may have noticed that you have started having a lot more creative ideas. Maybe you decided to start or restart your blog, learn to film or edit content, or start a new side hustle or a passion project. The challenge now is to prioritize and figure out which of these initiatives take precedence and where you are to focus the majority of your time and attention without falling into a lazy pace you may be tempted by. You might also find yourself needing or wanting to take a short trip at this time. And if you have siblings, you might find that your relationship with them is a bit more distant and detached. 4th house topics might also become relevant for you in this eclipse season since Ketu in Leo is currently still transiting over your 4th house. Perhaps you start looking for a place to call home, considering a move to a different country or simply moving to a different property, even if it's within the limits of your city. You might find yourself looking further inward, considering what you need for happiness, whether you are happy with your life in general, and what sort of overall life setup vector is the correct one for you at this time. Your relationship with your mother might grow more distant during this time. And if you've been needing or wanting to take some space from this relationship, or you feel like there's some more respectful detachment that you need to do within that relationship, then this eclipse season allows you the opportunity and the space to do exactly that. Perhaps establishing stricter boundaries with your mother. Lunar eclipse in the 10th house in Aquarius can open new career doors for you. Perhaps you start working with new foreign audiences. Maybe you finally get the promotion that you've been working toward, or you might even start thinking about the next career that you would like to pursue if you're feeling a little bit burnt out in the line of work that you're currently in. Gemini, the eclipse season will affect your 2nd and 9th houses. Solar eclipse in your 2nd house will prompt you to consider your relationship with your finances. It is best to put off any large investments or purchases until after the eclipse season is over, because there's a high risk of blacking out and spending or investing your money into something that won't yield good returns over time. You might also be reviewing your long-term financial strategy. Are you saving enough money? Are you ensuring your financial stability in the long run? What are the changes you might need to make in order to be satisfied with your financial position today, a year from now, 5, 10, 20 years from now. This eclipse might also have you considering your dietary habits as well as the way you communicate with other people. Third house topics might also be relevant for you, Gemini. If you find yourself in somewhat of a crisis when it comes to your blog or social media channels, don't fret and take a step back. This is a time to be somewhat detached from your creative expression or your social media presence to evaluate how you present yourself and what feels most authentic for you. The lunar eclipse in your 9th house might send you on a trip in both a very physical and metaphorical sense. You might go traveling, or you might be on a journey to find a teacher, a mentor, a guru, or someone to guide you in your learnings and personal development. You may find yourself learning a lot of new things, becoming a part of a learning program or a learning journey. And this can be anything from getting a yoga teacher certification to pursuing formal continued education like getting a master's degree. Make sure that you stay in contact with your values and stay true to your path, because you might find that some teacher, guide, or mentor figures in your life aren't necessarily right for you because of this value misalignment. Cancer, this eclipse is sneaking up on your 1st and 8th houses. Let's see what this means for you. Think of the solar eclipse in the 1st house as a mini preview of what is to come once the lunar nodes Rahu and Ketu change their signs from Leo and Aquarius to Cancer and Capricorn. This solar eclipse will prompt you to think a lot about yourself, your health, your appearance, your image, how you show up in the world, who you are, which version of yourself are you becoming, and which version of you want to leave in the past. You might learn quite a bit about yourself during this time, Cancer. What you're okay or not okay with, where you're going, what are the next goals for you, and a lot of these things will surprise you as you find yourself thinking or doing things that you've never expected of yourself. It may feel a bit liminal, where you feel like a version of you that exists today is no longer true, but a version of you that is currently being built is still work in progress. And overall, the theme for this eclipse season for you, Cancer, is learning to navigate the state of change and instability in life, even within yourself. It's also not the worst idea to do a health checkup, because this solar eclipse has the potential to not only change your self-image, self-esteem, but it can also make you reconsider how you take care of your body and your health, and what are the things that your body is going to need from you moving forward. Lunar eclipse in the 8th house somewhat echoes these themes for you, Cancer. The moon is the lord of your chart and your 1st house ruler, and she's being eclipsed in the 8th house. This will force you to be brutally honest with yourself. What are the things that are no longer working for you? Where are you going next? And what is it that you need to leave in the past? Possessions, beliefs, resources, and relationships. Finances, yours and your partner's, might also become a relevant topic during this eclipse season. In general, you may have been feeling a lack of stability in money matters over the last year, and this eclipse might force you to look at where you need to start or stop relying on your partner's help. This is a time to start looking at your longer-term financial goals and strategies, considering how you're going to ensure your long-term financial stability. Leo, this eclipse season will affect your 1st, 7th, and 12th houses. Solar eclipse in Cancer falls in your 12th house and will bring with itself some major life transitions your way. You may have noticed that there are some endings and transitions happening in your life right now. Perhaps you're moving to a different country. Maybe you're leaving a job or a career behind. Maybe you're leaving behind a long-term relationship or a friendship, or maybe you're even transitioning to another relationship. This eclipse season can bring more formal events to mark this change. For example, moving out of one apartment and signing a lease for another, handing in your resignation notice, having a difficult conversation with the person, or formalizing some things after you say goodbye to someone. This is all somewhat disorienting for you, Leo, and this time period is given to you to learn how to navigate uncertainty. You may feel the need to get out of limelight and take some time for yourself to reset, rethink, and regroup. If you crave some time in solitude, away from the hustle and bustle of your life, take it. Give yourself some time and space to think and take advantage of this energy-saving mode. You might find that with this eclipse season, you will need to step into new roles, new circumstances, navigate a completely new and uncharted territory of your life that forces you to grow, observe, and evolve. Lunar eclipse in your 7th house echoes these themes, in particular with respect to all interpersonal relationships and all foreign abroad themes. New people like a friend, a romantic partner, or even a business partner can come into your life during this eclipse season, or perhaps you get new opportunities abroad. If you're in a romantic relationship, Leo, pay attention to it during this eclipse season. Your perception of your partner or a relationship might not be all there at this time, and it's best not to make any rushed or hasty decisions, especially if you're tempted to start a new romantic relationship. The best strategy for this eclipse season for you, Leo, is to observe and allow yourself time to process before making any decisions. Virgo, this eclipse season is touching upon your 6th, 11th, and 12th houses. The solar eclipse in Cancer in your 11th house can have you learn quite a bit about who your friends are. You might feel less desire to socialize, be less attached to status, social circle, and recognition. You're naturally introverted, Virgo, and this eclipse season brings out this quality in you and prompts you to look further inward. The lunar eclipse in your 6th house might have you dealing with less romantic things and more down-to-earth practical matters. Perhaps you'll need to renew some important paperwork, like renew your driver's license or apply for an insurance package, get a complete health checkup or screening, deal with your bank or government service, even lawyers or notaries. Overall, over the next couple of weeks, there might be more to do, more chores, more work, more issues or questions that you'll need to find answers and solutions for, and things to settle. 6th house also deals with our habits, and you might be tempted to pick up some bad habits, especially ones that deal with substance like alcohol. In particular, if you're going through a tough time in your life right now, try your best to be responsible and leave the harmful habits in the past. Libra, this eclipse season is going to affect your 5th, 10th, and 11th houses. The solar eclipse in your 10th house of career will find you at a metaphorical fork in the road when it comes to your professional life and career. Are you where you need to be in your career? Perhaps is it time for a change? Should you switch companies? Should you change roles? Should you maybe consider switching industries or even a career type? Does your career bring you enough satisfaction? Or do you feel like you need to look elsewhere? This career review might be prompted in part by your income from it, especially if it has been on a decline recently, but also by the recognition or lack thereof in your field, in your workplace or activities. You are very social, Libra, and another thing that will come into focus for you during this eclipse season are your friendships and social circle. You may find yourself considering whether you're surrounding yourself with the right people, or maybe it's time to leave some people in the past and move on. Lunar eclipse in your 5th house can bring some disturbances with your children, if you have any, or with your creative projects. It can also simply bring new babies, both human and a creative project business type, into your life. And if you're single, you might find yourself scooped up by waves of new romance. But be careful, especially if the relationship moves fast and furious, as you might become disillusioned with this exciting new person who came into your life very soon. Scorpio. This eclipse season will strongly influence your 4th, 9th, and 10th houses. Solar eclipse will happen in your 9th house of spirituality, luck, travel, learning, and father. What it can bring you, Scorpio, is somewhat a crisis of faith and a need for guidance and direction. This eclipse can teach you a great deal about your values and non-negotiables. It can show you whether you're on the right path in life and whether you're taking the right approach. You might need a teacher to come into your life, someone to guide you, help you find the right answers for yourself, and get on the right spiritual journey for you. If you're an aspiring astrologer or somebody who's curious, you might find that you want some guidance in order to navigate this powerful and fascinating world. In that case, do know that I'm currently accepting students to my one-on-one tuition program, for which you can find the information linked in the description of this video. If astrology isn't your jam, this can extend over to any other topic that you're hoping to learn and master. This eclipse can also send you on a trip Or perhaps there will be circumstances that will prevent you from taking a planned trip. You might notice that a relationship with your father starts becoming colder and growing more distant and detached. It's important to know that Ketu is transiting your 10th house. And one of the things that you feel more acutely during this time is this need to review and rethink your career path. You might be tempted to change careers, you might experience professional burnout, or just become disinterested in your career, lose spark for what you're doing. This is the time to explore the next steps in your career and consider things like whether it is time to leave your job or career in the past and start looking for a new chapter in your professional life. Lunar eclipse in your 4th house in Aquarius can overall promote a sense of dissatisfaction in life. Perhaps you no longer like your living conditions, a city, a country, or an apartment or a house where you live in. Maybe there are some unresolved feelings that are gnawing at you. This eclipse season is here to have you examine what truly brings you joy, peace, and satisfaction in life. Sagittarius. The eclipse season brings up the topics of your 3rd, 8th, and 9th houses. The solar eclipse in Cancer takes place in your 8th house of mystical experiences, partners' finances, and unprecedented events and changes. It may very well bring you an event that seemingly comes out of nowhere and something that sets a completely new tone for your life afterwards. Or perhaps you find yourself in a very unusual situation or an experience that can only be described as mystical, where you might need to rely on the powers of your intuitive perception. The experience of this solar eclipse has the potential to change your life in core life areas like your self-image and personal growth, your inner peace, home, career, and even your relationships with your spouse or a future possible partner. If you're on a journey into yoga, spirituality, meditation, you might experience a sort of spiritual awakening or an epiphany, a very strong and transformative spiritual experience during this eclipse season. Try and actively seek out spiritual experiences during this eclipse season, things like vipassanas or attending spiritual retreats, because this can really move you on your spiritual journey. That being said, when I say spiritual experiences, I am not referring to anything like ayahuasca or anything that is induced by substances. If anything, events of this kind are likely to further set you back and can be even dangerous, so it's best to stay away from them if you can. The 8th house themes are overall very relevant for you at this time, Sagittarius. Jupiter, your chart ruler, is currently transiting Cancer, which is the 8th house of your birth chart, where it will stay until June of 2027. If you want to learn more about what this means for you, be sure to check out my Jupiter in Cancer transit forecast that I recorded a couple of months ago, as it will continue to be relevant until the end of June of 2027. Since the eclipse also has an effect on your 9th house, you might feel a bit lost, disoriented, searching for knowledge and guidance. A teacher or a mentor can enter your life soon. If you resonate with astrology and feel called to learn more, I am currently accepting students of all levels to my one-on-one tuition program, and I also give personalized birth chart readings if you want to know what is in store for you. All the information is linked in the video description. Lunar eclipse in your 3rd house can have you traveling more than usual and give an abundance of interests, hobbies, creative passions, side hustles, or creative projects. Remember that you have a finite supply of energy and prioritize accordingly, relying more heavily on automations, AI software, and workflows that can greatly impact your output and your ability to bring these ideas into life. Capricorn, the eclipses this time around have a strong influence on your 7th, 8th, and 2nd houses. The solar eclipse in your 7th house can bring up the matter of the ego and self-esteem in relationships, both on your and your partner's side. It is going to be more difficult to have a clear view of the relationship and have a very adequate appreciation and view of your partner during this time. It might also be more difficult to make decisions because you might feel a little bit clouded. So it's best not to rush into any decisions or any steps in the relationship that will move you beyond the point of no return. You might experience more distance in your relationship with your partner, both physical and psychological. And if you're not in a relationship, then during this eclipse season, your desire to be in one or your outlook towards being in a relationship might be so that you feel a little bit more colder and detached from the topic, as if this no longer interests you at this time, and you're just less interested in people in general. Ketu in your 8th house might bring a decline or instability in your partner's finances if you have a partner. Also, if you're running a Ketu planetary period or set period currently, you can experience something very unusual in this eclipse corridor, something that can only be described as a mystical experience. Lunar eclipse in your 2nd house can bring a financial windfall if your planetary periods currently allow for it. Some of your investments can yield return, or overall your net worth can take an upward trend. You might also notice a stronger appetite and more whimsical dietary preferences. You might be tempted to pick up smoking or drinking, so try and be responsible with the habits that you have and with the things that you are consuming. Aquarius, this eclipse season touches on your 1st, 6th, and 7th houses. Solar eclipse in your 6th house brings up topics of obligation, service, and health. This means you may need to deal with your bills, debt, mortgage, credit card balance, things of that nature. It's generally not a good idea to start a new financial obligation. So if you were planning to get new credit or get into new mortgage, it's best to wait until after the eclipse season is over, and instead currently pay more attention to your current financial obligations and debt. But this doesn't just apply to debts in the financial sense. This also means that if you have any obligations in front of someone, if you've made some promises, or if you're in debt to someone, then it might be time to pay your dues, as the people who you owe to might come to collect. Maybe you'll need to do someone a favor, do right by someone, or contribute or serve to your community. It might be something as simple as cleaning up your neighborhood, or something more official like serving on jury duty if you're called upon. The specifics can vary broadly here, but the overall theme for you Aquarius during this eclipse is paying your dues, even if it's something that's not necessarily convenient for you. It's also a very good idea, Aquarius, to get a health screening, since the eclipses touch both on the 1st house of physical body and health and the 6th house of disease. So you, more than any other zodiac sign this eclipse season, should get a health screening and try and get ahead with preventative treatments that are required in your situation. Other topics that the lunar eclipse in your 1st house can bring up is the dissatisfaction with your self-image or appearance, perhaps wanting to be a little bit more bold and adventurous with your personal style or your self-expression. You might want to try a different look, a different clothing style, or a different emploi for yourself. You may feel more bold and daring than usual, something that can also have an effect in your relationships, as the focus of your attention shifts very much so on you, your needs and your wants, and away from the relationship and your partner. You may have even been less interested in people in general lately, but also wondering whether you want to be in a relationship at all, whether you're single or currently in a relationship. This eclipse season will help you assess what your life focus needs to be, whether it's currently with you or with other people, and how to find the right balance in your life, how to move forward by giving you the space that you need while also honoring the right relationships to stay in your life, and looking at the format and setup of the ones that do. Pisces, last but never least. This eclipse season takes place in your 5th, 6th, and 12th houses. The solar eclipse in the 5th house will bring a theme of introspection into your creative expression, your attitude toward children if you don't have any, or your relationships with them if you're already a parent. You might feel somewhat burnt out, like an inspiration, vision, or energy to follow your creative interests, hobbies, or activities. This is more notable for anybody who is an artist, an author, a creative director, a business owner. In other words, anybody who engages in a lot of creative activity in their life. If you don't have kids, you might find that you're no longer sure you want them at all. Or maybe you'll be rethinking conditions under which you would be willing to go on a parenthood journey. If you do have kids, your relationship with them can grow a bit more distant, or you might be entering a time where they might need to move away from home, maybe because they're moving away to school and there's physically more distance in their relationship. Try to get a health screening and a checkup if you can, since Ketu continues moving over your 6th house and can bring some health disturbances, especially since Saturn is starting to move retrograde in your 1st house of body and health, in this way bringing more attention to the topic of health in your life. Lunar eclipse in your 12th house can prompt a time for introspection and solitude, perhaps some foreign and long-distance travel. Be careful with your expenses and try to avoid the ones that aren't necessary, as there might be some unplanned expenses that you need to incur, and they might be quite high. That is it for the August 2026 eclipse season forecast. If you like this video, then give me a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to be notified of the upcoming videos, and leave a comment letting me know how you're experiencing this eclipse season. Take care!